What's up, everyone? It is Brandon here again for another video. In today's video, I am going to be giving you a sort of guided meditation. This isn't going to be necessarily a specific guided meditation. It might not be like every one you've heard before, but I have heard people that I've talked to give me this feedback that when I start to describe my own direct experience, many people have told me, or at least a high percentage of the people I talk to about such things, they seem to say that this guides them to their own perceptual shifts, their experience changes, and they might see into things with a little bit more insight, and they might just have a cool experience, or they might get something out of it. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, what is direct experience? What is consciousness? What is the thing you're in right now, or that you could say you are? It depends what your definition of you is at the moment. If we are talking about a working definition of you, I'm not going to be talking too much about the individual you. I'm sure plenty of people who've watched my videos will know the difference between the individual egoic you versus the more whole picture of experience as a whole. That's a sort of a capital Y you. I think a lot of my viewers probably can follow on that. But if you're new to the channel, I will give some description. But anyway, let's get into it. So, what is happening right now for you? What are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? Get in contact with that. I'm going to describe to you what's going on for me. So, a big part of what this whole show is, what this whole awakening show is, this whole awakening game that we play as human beings, where we talk about things such as enlightenment, nirvana. You know, the list goes on and on. We can say all kinds of fancy words. What it comes down to, in my opinion, is you're trying to see deeper into the nature of things as they already are for you right now. And there's actually no place to ever awaken other than where you're at right now. Now, why is this? You might say that's a bit of a strange idea, or some of you might be following right along. But the idea with this is the only place you can awaken is right here, right now, because the only place that is, meaning present, meaning existing now, that is what you're in right now. If you're going to awaken, it's going to happen in this. Now, you might say, Brandon, I've had an enlightenment experience, or I took a bunch of psychedelics and I had some crazy insights and that happened in the past. Or you might be thinking, I think one day after meditating for years and years, I'll get to some crazy change and then I will know what awakening is about. This is, on a conventional level, nothing's really wrong with thinking about that. But if you want to actually awaken, you need to realize that the only thing you have to awaken, the only thing you can awaken in, the only awakening that ever happens is in this sort of thing, this experience that you're in right now. Nothing really needs to change much about where you're at or who you are. What needs to change is merely you see things in a slightly different way that then opens up your eyes. Beyond just your physical eyes or your visual eyes, I'm saying this is opening up your perceptual eyes, or even a sort of eyes that go beyond perception itself. We are trying here to change the way that experience itself flows. How does your whole field of awareness right now, all objects within it, all perceptions you have, all thoughts you have, all people there, all beings there, all matter there, literally everything. We're trying to change how that holistic everything down to the last smallest molecule, atom, quark, it doesn't matter. Whatever we want to call the smallest thing, qualia, the smallest perceptual thing, the smallest physical thing, it doesn't matter. We're talking about the big picture as well as all details. Everything there is right now for you experientially, that's what we're talking about, this whole show. When you awaken, the way that this whole show goes about changes. Now, how does this change? It's a really odd thing to talk about. There are many elements to it. All the classic sort of awakening schools like Buddhism and Hinduism and the other forms of mysticism and other religions or forms of spirituality, New Age stuff, it all is more or less, you're going to see into things in a more true way, in a deeper way, in a way with more insight. But what does that actually feel like? Well, some classic elements of it, if we look to Hinduism, there's the whole concept of the jiva, which is like your individual personal self. It's basically your small self, your human being, your personality structure, that sort of stuff. And it could even be a soul, but like an individual sort of soul in a sense. And then there's the Atman, which is a more comprehensive sort of self. And the Atman, which you could equate rather than to just your personality structure, your ego, your human being character, your body, all of that stuff. Rather than that, the Atman is actually everything in a sense. Some people might describe the Atman as being the ground within which awareness is occurring, or the things occur within awareness. Either way, we can give a lot of different ways of pointing at what the Atman is, but either way, it is basically just saying your experience as a whole, or a more holistic version of things rather than just your small self. So realizing that you might actually be accurately or more accurately identified with the Atman rather than the jiva, rather than your ego, rather than your human being self, that's a step in awakening. And then there's the idea of Brahman, this sort of consciousness, this ground of being, you might even say, this intangible, perfectly divine thing. That, in a sense, is equated to the Atman in many Hindu scriptures, but it also points to a more universal expression of what the Atman is, rather than just one experience having it. Rather than just your Atman, it's more Brahman. It includes even more. But if we look closely enough, there's really nothing outside of what you are experiencing at the experiential level. It's tautological in a sense. But now we can also look into things such as anatta, which comes from Buddhism. This is another element of awakening. It's very similar, actually, to the Atman and Brahman concepts, but it's pointing to potentially a more subtle way of viewing the same truth, or viewing a slightly different truth. But anatta is essentially, it comes from the roots, it's like negating the word that is to follow, and then it's supposed to, anatta comes from an-atman, which is basically the negation of the Atman. Anatta, the non-substantiality of the self. In Buddhism, basically, when you hear people say no self, I have no self, I am no self, whatever, they're just talking about this sort of insight that you're not even identified with the Atman. You might even recognize what the Atman is at an experiential level, perceptually. You might have come into direct experience of what that is like, or what that might be. But the no-self insight in Buddhism is meant to go even more subtle and say, what is happening here in this experiential thing? And now I've talked a lot about direct experience and the experience you're having now, but there are some things beyond just the experience you're having now. There are elements, more philosophical in a sense, that we can pull into this equation to see even further than just experiential truths. That's a leap that a lot of people might not be ready to take in their understanding, because it requires either a lot of imagination, intuition, or just one of the classical meditative attainments or, thingies that people get into after, usually years of practice. But anyway, so I'd like to add real quick too. When I talk about Atman, I'm not talking about just like the things that you experience or see or your awareness. There's also an unconditioned element to the Atman. Same goes for Brahman. And this is sort of like, it's getting closer to what I'm talking about when I say there are elements of this whole picture of awakening that go beyond just experience. And when we talk about the unconditioned, or we might even say something more like the causal body, I believe might be another term for it. I believe I've heard that in the heartfulness tradition, which is basically a type of Hinduism or its own practice developed off of a Hindu, foundation. I've practiced in that, a good amount, and received some formal training to a degree in it. But anyway, if you look deep enough in really any wisdom tradition worth much, you will find that there is some alluding to something beyond just experience. Even the vast, beautiful Godhead type realizations that people get into, such as like those Brahman states, nirvana, whatever, moksha. There are so many different words. It's hard to pin down what people actually mean when they use a flashy word. I'm trying to give you a picture. Now, the really funny thing here is I've been wanting to guide you based off of my experience, and I ended up going through all those sort of definitions and giving us a little bit of a framework of just some basic awakening stuff. Maybe for those of you who are not familiar with all of this stuff, or are maybe new to the channel or new to these forms of spirituality. So maybe that was helpful. But now I want to get into the meat of this video. I want to get into what experience is, what things are in truth, what you are in truth, and what the reality is that is even beyond you is in truth. Basically, what I'm saying is, what the hell is happening? What the hell is there? How does it work? What is it? And what's so special about it? This is me basically picking apart life itself and just any experience even outside of what we call living. We're going to get into what is more or less consistent true nature to this whole show of reality and even potentially the unconditioned elements outside of what we would typically call reality. What is going on? Let's start. So right now, you're a human being most likely, right? Or at least in a conventional sense, you can admit to me and yourself that you might be in a human body. You might have a mind that is programmed by a lot of the cultural and psychological elements floating around in the 21st century on planet Earth. All of this stuff is well and good. Nothing wrong with that. We need to realize that all of that stuff I just pointed out when I'm talking about the 21st century, cultural conditioning, your whole human structure, what you are as a human being, this is stuff that is not consistent. This is stuff that is not fundamental to experience. Now, many of you psychonauts and awakening junkies out there who might subscribe to my channel or watch a lot of content like this or do a bunch of meditation, psychedelics, whatever, you might have had some experiences for yourself where you know for a fact, you have verified it, you have lived it, you have gone through it, that human reality is not all there is. You can have life, you can have experience without being human. You can have life, you can have experience without having a body. These are just facts. It is possible it can happen to you if you want it to, or maybe it will happen to you even if you don't want it to happen. The point is, with all of this, human life, human thoughts, human beliefs, human emotions, human body, all of this is temporary, and it is not our ultimate ground of being that we're going to point to here. Now, of course, a lot of you, well, actually, maybe not that many of you, I don't know, some people, clever people on this awakening path, have realized that even pointing to things such as what is the true nature of things, or what is the ground of being, or what is the ultimate truth, they've seen that trying to characterize things in that way doesn't necessarily, the puzzle pieces don't fit perfectly. Let's say it that way. So, you're a human being, more or less. You're having that sort of experience, probably. It's not that important to what awakening is, to what reality is, to what your true nature is. But, thankfully, as human beings, and as someone on my channel right now, you probably understand English to some degree. At least you can use subtitles and have some sort of idea of what is going on here. Or you just like looking at me or hearing my voice. I don't know. But I would assume that you know the English language. That's another thing. That is temporary. But thank goodness we are able to use all of this temporary stuff right now to see deeper into what reality is together. So, all of that stuff's temporary. All of that stuff is not you. It is not your true nature. It is not what reality is at its core. It is not the answer, right? So let's get beyond it. Right now, if there is anything occurring whatsoever, it is occurring within your direct experience. Your direct experience holds everything that there ever is, will be, has been. And the truth is, we could say that because it's true in the present sense. You know, this is what is true, is what you are experiencing right now, this instant. But even that is not 100% the way things work. There actually is no such thing as a present moment. That may be surprising to some of you, maybe not. Maybe you have heard this before. Either way, bear with me. There is no present moment that you can actually pin down as the true nature of things. There's nothing that really is. Why is that? Because you're never stuck in a present moment. You need to realize if you tune your perception, if you use your awareness and consciousness as a human being to its full potential, or even a minute portion of its potential, you can see that things in experience change so rapidly quick that if we were to ever say that you're in a moment and that is the present moment, that is the now, it's already gone. It's not actually some like fixed thing you can ever be in. Maybe something we could, it's sort of like this. You cannot count on the present moment as being a sort of noun. A better way to think about it, still not perfect, but a better tool to see what reality is to start to think of the present moment as a verb. Now, this verb is, it's not a thing doing things. It's actually the motion, the action of reality. And the truth of it is, it's happening so fast. There are so many perceptual little, particles that are in your awareness right now. There's so much content happening and changing. We could never say or act like there is something fixed in this present moment. And this gets all down to the, one of the things talked about a lot in Buddhism is anicca, the truth of impermanence, one of the 3 marks of existence, or the 3 characteristics in Buddhism. Basically, one of the 3 building blocks of what reality is, if we're to understand it in truth in any way. The 3 characteristics, they get you closer to the answer than a lot of people start out at. So the 3 characteristics are: reality is impermanent. Things change. You can't actually count on anything being a certain way. It's not reliable. This reality changes. And that's one of the reasons why suffering occurs, is because you can't actually ever get to your perfect, happy la-la land. Because even the la-la land changes. Because it's perceptual. Because it's an experience. And we can get deeper into that. Why this sort of heavenly type vision that we all are familiar with, being in some paradise. Even paradise itself is not a cure to suffering. It's a bit of a bitter pill to swallow maybe at first, but if you go far enough, you'll see that that actually can be a good thing. Now, so first of the 3 characteristics in Buddhism is impermanence. We see that reality changes. We see that what we are changes, and we can't look at any of it to be a real, fully existing self that we could ever count on to get ourselves out of trouble. We don't even have a self to get out of trouble. And it's because things change. Because things change, we can't count on them to satisfy ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why we suffer, why we have stress, why we have anxiety, why we have, the amplification of pain, the mental amplification of pain. That's one way of describing what suffering is. But anyway, dukkha is just bad stuff you don't like, pretty much. One of the tricks to awakening deeper and getting past suffering is actually coming to no longer resist a lot of the things that you used to. It's actually taking away the conditioning and knee-jerk reactions that you had programmed into you as a human being, that were full of beliefs, and your view of the world was just operating in a way that it amplified a bunch of suffering. Well, one of the tricks to getting out of suffering is actually lessening your resistance to it and stopping the attempt to go somewhere else. And that takes us, again, back to sort of where we started with this whole video. We're starting with the experience you're in right now. So things change. There's suffering in it. At least it is a part of experience. It can happen. Suffering. Stress, anxiety, whatever. Different words to point to dukkha. It's a Pali word, dead language. Doesn't translate perfectly to one English word. Anyway, and that's the second characteristic. Third is anatta, no self. We talked a bit about that before. It's basically the idea that there is non-substantiality to the self. And now let's go a little bit further. So, things are changing. There is suffering if there is a character believing that things have to be a certain way, believing that you want things to be permanent, that you want the goodies in life to last forever. You want pleasure to last forever. You don't want any pain. All that, all that gets you stuck in suffering. And one of the ways you get out of it, you realize non-substantiality of the self. That's your own self, anatta, but we can see deeper now. One of the important things in Buddhism and Buddhist meditation experience, like when you go through it and when you start to understand this stuff, anatta, that way of looking at yourself, also ends up applying to everything else. How does that happen? Well, one of the ways it happens is through a concept known as dependent origination. It basically is saying that there are many things that work together that arise codependently in your experience right now to create what is happening. there is not a single one of the elements of things co-arising in your direct experience right now, not a single one of them is fully true as a real thing. And this is where we get to sunyata, emptiness. It is by seeing that the non-substantiality of the self, that's just one way of understanding this. When you start to see that the whole show, as well as every single element of the show, every combination of the elements that make up the show, they are all empty of what we call self-nature, or we could just say they lack inherent existence. On their own, they don't exist. This water bottle doesn't exist just as a water bottle. This water bottle, to be in direct experience right now, requires awareness of the water bottle. Now, awareness, a lot of people on their spiritual journey, they might get to a point where they're like, oh yeah, awareness, identifies awareness, it's great, it's the answer, it's the end, I'm done, perfect, awakened, great. Now I can go teach forever and just, wear robes or wear whatever I want and just be a cool spiritual badass. It doesn't work that way quite because awareness, you're aware of something. Even awareness itself is a thing. It is an object. You can find that to be true if you look into this stuff deep enough. If you look into your own awareness deep enough, you can see that there is actually no awareness separate. Like if we're talking about the awareness of this bottle, the bottle and the awareness of the bottle are tied together. There is not awareness alone and the bottle doesn't exist. And there's not bottle alone without awareness. These are things co-arising right now. Now, the bottle, of course, relies on form. And, if we want to get real technical and maybe a little boring, we could think about where all this comes from. When we're talking about dependent origination, there are things called the aggregates. The 5 aggregates. I don't even have them all memorized in this second to list them off. It's really not that important to see each one like in a single moment. You don't have to look at the names. What you need to take away from the aggregates are basically 5 heaps, we might call them, that you can sort of roughly as a tool put all of experience, all of reality into these 5 heaps and see that within these 5 heaps, it pretty much covers everything there is. And all of these 5 heaps rely on each other to create experience. Without one, experience isn't the way that it would be with it. And all of this is a show working together. Actually, it's more like an orchestra. Is all these different musicians and instruments working together to create this song. But when we talk about sunyata or emptiness, the fact that all of these things, all of the musicians, all of the sounds coming from the musicians, if we're talking about reality as an orchestra or the song that they're playing, emptiness is pointing to the fact that the musicians don't really exist. The song doesn't really exist on its own. The instruments don't exist on their own. You could say the instruments don't play the music on their own. And the people don't play the music on their own without the instruments. And the sound doesn't come out without the people and the instruments working together. And without the people and the instruments and the sound working together, you can't hear the sound of the orchestra to then think in your mind, which is a mental formation, that, oh, this orchestra is great and I love it. And then get into a pleasant experience in your, sort of chitta. I need to get better at the pronunciation of that. Citta. Basically, how does it, or really I'm trying to talk about Vedana. Why am I getting all bogged down in Pali right now? Nobody cares. So, I hope you're seeing sort of the idea of this analogy of an orchestra. If we look at your direct experience, like one of the instruments could be your sense of smell. One of the instruments could be your sense of taste. One of the instruments could be your understanding of the English language that impacts your view of your present moment right now based off the ideas you are holding in the English language with discursive thought. When we start to see that your whole reality is built of all these tiny blocks all arising together, that's fine. A lot of people might be able to see that. The important part is to see that not a single building block of reality actually exists in the way that you thought that they did. This is not an intellectual insight, of course. With any type of awakening stuff, that's always the truth. If you just think you understand something intellectually, it doesn't matter, really. Who cares? The Buddha himself scoffed, well, Siddhartha Gautama, whatever. The Buddha, supposedly many Buddhas, like 80 billion or something, and one of the sutra, I think it was, anyway. The Buddha himself did not like philosophers, did not like people, or at least did not hold in high regard the idea of philosophy as just understanding things or the intellectualization of insights. It is all about the heart and soul of you coming to experience these things for yourself. So then maybe when you intellectually understand it, that actually helps guide your experience even further. There's nothing wrong with intellectual understanding. Intellectual understanding is actually very helpful. Contemplation, even on the level of language, can be incredibly helpful on your awakening journey. But, you need to experience it. What does it feel like to see that things are empty? I mean, that's a really hard thing to pin down. And, the thing is, once you get deeper and deeper into this stuff, you will realize you are all on your own. There's no actual pure, true definition of what reality is outside of your own intuitive grasping of what reality is. That's what we're trying to get to. Let's actually get into the meat of it. Everything there is you experience right now. You inhabit all of space. In every direction, you are all of it. You extend infinitely to capture all of reality. That's spatially. Your awareness holds all of reality within it. This moment that we could say is happening or is the now, that is only you. And the thing is, there isn't necessarily a you anymore either. There is this reality occurring without a character that's really truly there, without a personality that really truly matters. There is this show. There is experience occurring. And the trick of the great mystics and sages and people who found some beautiful experience for themselves, one of the tricks is to realize what happens to your character isn't that important. It is literally realizing life is like a dream. When you are in a dream at night, let's say a lucid dream, you wouldn't necessarily go and study for boring exams for like 12 hours in a dream that you knew was all fun and nothing mattered. When you understand that reality is more or less a playground that you are out of control of as a character to do anything about, you need to just meld into the game itself, meld into the dream itself, melt into the dream itself. Just become one with what is happening. And don't fear it. Don't resist it. Don't cling on to it too much. See that it is a passing show, that all of it occurs within you, and see that the yous that you identify with are not the real you. That is not your true nature. Your true nature is not Brandon Rowe or Barack Obama or SpongeBob SquarePants. Your true nature isn't even the Atman. It isn't even the unconditioned element of the Atman. It isn't just Brahman. It isn't Anatta. Nothing actually ever points to it perfectly, but the beautiful thing is, it is all there is. And it doesn't matter what tradition you look at it from, or how many angles you look at it from different human traditions and understanding, or how many psychedelics you take. Leo Gura. Fucking butt drug addict, gosh. Get a grip, man. But no, yeah. Great guy, though, seriously. Maybe a little bit too many drugs in his butt. Moment of silence. Okay, now let's go on. So, it really doesn't matter what you do to try to comprehend the ultimate truth, because things change. There is not some ungraspable truth that you will reach where you'll be fully done. Awakening is not an end point. Even if you want to say you're in Dzogchen and you're at the great completion, that is sort of just, my take on what it appears to be. If we look at a teaching like Dzogchen, it's a Buddhist teaching or tradition, and that's supposed to be geared towards ending this whole journey, getting to the end of awakening, getting to the end of the whole thing. What it appears to me, the more I study a system such as that, is the end is more realizing that there's not necessarily an end, but you can be done. You can be done trying to go on with the charade of I'm going to steer experience as a temporary, tiny part of experience. I'm going to steer myself to the promised land forever. No, that doesn't work. That's not how reality is. You need to realize, first off, you don't need to go anywhere else. If you can find awakening now, if you can find your true nature this second, you won't need to go anywhere else. And if you see things as they truly are, you won't care. You don't actually need to do anything, go anywhere, resist anything, want anything, if you can only just see what the hell you are. See how it works, see how nice it is. For me, I can get so caught up in the everyday human garbage. It's so easy for us to get pulled into this realm of suffering and temporary ideas of our own human importance, and I really need that, that extra sugar shot in my coffee today. If they put 2 of them instead of 3 on my drive-through coffee, I'm pissed. I don't even really drink coffee like that. It's just a random example that came up. There are so many things that can piss you off. So many things that can make you unhappy. And beyond that, even if you feel happy, there's so many other things that you can, if you're honest with yourself, you look deeply within yourself, you'll see that you want more fucking shit. You want more fucking shit. You want to have more shit. You want to be more shit. You don't want shit. Like, you don't want the bad shit. You want all the good shit. You're trying to chase after the life that you want, after the life that's perfect, the life that's great, the promised land, the great happiness. You're trying to chase. Well, every time you chase, you're just creating more activity, but it doesn't actually get you further. Because the only answer is right now, right here in this fucking infinite reality, which you are, but there ain't a you to be it. It's just happening. We're here in reality, and it ain't real, and it's so nice. And we don't need to chase things. We don't need to identify with all this dumb shit out our eyes. We don't need to care about this realm, but we also need to not care. What I don't even know, why does it matter what I say? It doesn't really matter, okay. Shakti pod in your butt. Are you getting it? The awakening thing. Are you doing it? Did you get it? It's fucking right here, right now. But there ain't even a now. There ain't even a right, because there's not a left, because it's just fucking this. I don't know. I think we're at the end. If I'm singing, we're done. Dzogchen master right here. And yeah, I know it might be Dzogchen. It might be slightly different pronunciation. Whatever. Don't come at me. You know what? I love you guys. And, any being watching this, I hope that you find a state where you do find that promised land. If only for some fleeting moments or hours or days or months or years or whatever. I hope that you get to taste the good stuff in life. And if this video somehow helped you get there, well, fuck. You must be lucky, or there must be something wrong with you. Because, to be honest with you guys, one of the reasons I don't make that many videos anymore is because I feel like I've realized you can't make that big of an impact on a person's life. It's really, especially on this awakening stuff, it's up to the person themselves. It's up to their own will. It's up to the reality of things beyond their will and who they are and what they can control. It's just the flow of their life is going to take them a certain place. They're going to do certain things. They're going to learn what they want to learn. They're going to get where they want to get or not. And what I say isn't going to change that much. It's not going to change someone's journey. If someone went their whole life without seeing a Brandon Rowe video, it doesn't really matter that much. Even if I was like some special teacher, it's all up to the person themselves. So just take some responsibility for yourself to get where you want to get in life. And if you like this awakening stuff, if you think of meditation and cool meditative attainments and nirvana and nibbana and, moksha and all that, and, all that stuff. If you think that's cool, or you think God realizations is cool, or you think, psychedelic trips are cool, whatever. Just go do what you want to do. You're going to do it anyway, whether I tell you to or not. Just have fun. Have a good life. Have a good death. I hope it goes well. That's all I can say. But yeah, I don't think my videos are going to change much. And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I've had people tell me, "Oh man, your content's changed my life." I can't believe it. I can believe it in the sense that, like, yeah, maybe I encountered something that I learned, or a person that I learned from for a while, and it helped my life in certain ways. But really, at the end of the day, it's not the person, it's the journey that you're on, and you're the only one having that journey. And I wish you the best. And if this helped, give me a thumbs up, write a comment that write your favorite type of soup from another culture in the comments. And that is the way that I'll know that you're a true fan and you watched all the way, is if you comment with no other context. You just comment your favorite dish that is at least a good bit liquid, a soup from another culture, not your own soup. All right, damn it, I want a different cultural soup. Diversity. Love you guys. Have a good life.